Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, we'll be solving the October-November 2020 paper, specifically paper 31. So we're going to solve the very first question. So in this experiment, you will determine the value of X in the formula of hydrated sodium thiosulfate, where X is an integer. So you will first prepare a solution of the salt and then use this solution in a titration with aqueous iodine. The thiosulfate ion react with iodine as shown, so it's really nice they gave us the ionic equation, which we're going to be using in the calculation questions. So Fa1 is hydrated sodium thiosulfate, and Fa3 is 0.05 moles per decimeter cubed of iodine, and we're also given a starch indicator. So let's start off with the method. We're going to prepare the salt solution. We're going to weigh the container containing Fa1. So we have this container with Fa1, and then we're going to just get the mass of that. Then we're going to dump all that content into a 250 centimeter cube beaker, and then we're going to reweigh this original beaker again, and that will give us the mass of Fa1 used in this experiment. So we're just going to subtract it, right? Next, we're going to add approximately 200 centimeter cubed of distilled water to the salt in the beaker, and we're going to mix it, right? So we're going to pour that content. So after we mix it, we add the water, we're going to pour that content into a 250 centimeter cube volumetric flask. And we're going to rinse that beaker with a little distilled water and add these washings to the flask. We're going to fill that flask up to the 250 centimeter cube mark, and we're going to label the solution as Fa2. So now we're dealing with this volume, which is really important, and that is 250 centimeters cubed. Okay, so now for the actual titration, we're going to fill a burette with Fa2. We're going to pipette 25 centimeter cubed of Fa3 into the conical flask. Remember, Fa3 is iodine. We're going to add Fa2 from the burette, little by little, until the solution in the flask turns yellow. Once it turns yellow, we're going to add 10 drops of the starch indicator to the conical flask. The solution will then turn blue-black. We're going to continue to add more Fa2 from the burette until that blue-black color just disappears. That's when we know, our titration is over, and we're going to look at our burette, and we're going to see the reading, and we're just going to record it. So what I did was create this table, which you should also be creating, and also remember to place units. So like here with the mass, I made sure that it's in grams. The burette reading is in centimeters cubed. So these are also points that you'll be getting, just like even if you didn't do anything, you're at least labeling your table correctly, you'll be getting marks. Okay, so for the approximation or the rough titer, you're gonna have your initial burette reading. So say it's at like 50 centimeter cubed, and then you turn it on and it's like draining and draining and draining, and it gets to like 25, right? So 50 and then 25.00, something like that. And then you're going to subtract it and you get your titer, which is about 25. Then we're going to now repeat it, and we're going to go a little bit slower this time. We're going to do it about 3 times, and we want to make sure we're getting like an accurate reading. So some things to look out for. We're going to make sure all our readings are recorded to 0.05 centimeters cubed. That's just what we need to do. We're going to make sure that we are as accurate as possible. And then for our final titer, when we're trying to get that average or the mean that we're going to use for B, we want to make sure we're using the readings that are 0.1 centimeters cubed away from each other. So for example, this one is 24.48, this one is 24.56, and this one is 25.51. We'll use these two because they're actually just 0.1 away from each other to create the average or the mean that we're going to be using for the rest of the calculations. All right, so for the actual calculation question, so we're going to give our answers to appropriate number of significant figures, and that's going to be between 3 to 4 significant figures, right? So they asked us to calculate the number of moles of iodine in 25 centimeter cubed. We're going to go back to our beautiful triangle, which has the concentration to our right, number of moles at the top, and volume, concentration on our left, number of moles to the top, and volume on the right. So if we want the number of moles, which is N, is going to be concentration times volume. That's how you read the triangle. If you wanted volume, it will be number of moles divided by concentration, or if you want concentration, it will be number of moles divided by the volume. Okay, so we were told that the concentration of iodine at the very start is 0.05 moles per decimeter cubed, and we have our volume. Only problem is we got to make sure the units are the same. So we're going to change centimeter cubed to decimeter cubed, and we know for every decimeter cubed, there's 1,000 centimeters cubed. So we're going to place the 1,000 centimeter cubed at the bottom, and the reason for that is because it cancels out. So for example, you know, when you do 2 over 2, it'll give you 1. So if you do like centimeter cubed over centimeter cubed, it'll also just equal to 1. They cancel out. Same with here, the decimeter cubed. So this one's at the top, this one's at the bottom. They cancel out, and we're left with mole as our unit. So a good indicator for how you're supposed to be solving these questions is to check out your units, because that usually helps out when you're trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to use, what numbers, what values. It makes things a lot easier. Next, we're going to calculate the number of moles of thiosulfate ions in the volume recorded in B. So we're going to use our trusty equation, and we're going to see that for every iodine, we're going to use 2 thiosulfate ions. So we're going to take the moles of iodine that we found, which is 1.25 times 10 to the negative 3, and multiply that by 2. And that's it. Then we're going to calculate the number of moles of hydrated sodium thiosulfate in the mass weighed in A, so in our original mass. So the 2.5 was what, like the number of moles in that, in the thing that we titrated, so like the 25-ish centimeters cubed or whatever amount that we found in B when you're actually doing the experiment. But how much is there in the 250? So I like to use this sort of logic. So 2.5 is in B, X is what we're trying to find, and 250. Then we're going to cross multiply. So B times X, and the 2.5 times 10 to the negative 3 times 250, and we're going to solve for X. So B times X is equal to 2.5 times 10 to the negative 3 times 250. We're going to move the B to the other side, so it'll become divided by B, and that will just be X, right? So that's what you have to do, and you'll get the moles that they're asking for. Next, we're going to calculate the value of X in the formula of hydrated sodium thiosulfate. So what is this X now, right? So you're going to go to the back of your exam paper, you'll find the periodic table, and there you're going to find the mass, or the molar mass, of sodium thiosulfate. And that's about 158.2 grams per mole. So if you add these all up, it'll give you this value. Alrighty, so we need to find the molar mass of what we calculated, right? Or what is actually there right now. So we have our mass, and remember, the units for molar mass is grams per mole, so that's a good indicator that you need a mass and you need some moles. So you have your mass in A that we calculated at the start, and we have the moles that we found here, depending on our calculation. That will be our MR. So this MR includes the water, right? And then the 158.2 that we just found does not. So now we're just finding the actual mass of water that's being used, or in this experiment, or whatever it may be, right? We're dividing that by 18 grams per mole, which is the molar mass of H2O. So the MR of H2O is equal to 18 grams per mole. So you're going to divide that. So for example, if you got 36 grams per mole or something, you're going to divide it by 18 grams per mole, and that should equal to 2. So your X is going to be 2. You're not going to get an exact value, so you're just going to round it up, round it down, depending on what that number is, and you should be fine. You should get the marks. Make sure it's an integer though, or you will be losing marks. Now, for the next part, we're going to state the maximum error in a single reading on the balance used in A. So depending on the balance that you have, you're dealing with, whether it's a 1 decimal place balance or a 2 decimal place balance, the mark scheme accepts either one of these answers, but the real answer, the right one, should be the ones highlighted in yellow. So if it's 1 decimal place, so 0.1, you should divide by 2 to get the actual error, which is 0.05, and you'll place it in here, right? That's the error you're going to keep using for the next calculation. So they want us to calculate the maximum percentage error in the mass of Fa1 used in A. So we measured twice using the balance, right? We got the initial mass and the final, hence why we multiply by 2. So the formula for uncertainty, or the percentage error, will be the uncertainty that we found, which is, for example, 0.05, multiplied by 2, divided by the mass that we calculated, and then because we want percentage, we're multiplying by 100. So that's the formula. Make sure you know it. If you measured more than twice, 3 times, whatever amount that you're going to do, or just once, you'll change this number accordingly. So assume that the uncertainty in the mass of Fa1 is the only source of error in your experiment. Calculate the minimum value for the relative formula mass of Fa1, showing our work. So remember, DI, the percentage error is in, well, percentage. So we want to find the relative, or the minimum value, right? So if we have an error of, for example, 2%, that means the actual MR is about 98% correct, for example, right? So it'll be like 100 minus the 2% that we found. We want to get rid of percentage, so we divide by 100. And now we're left with a decimal, so 0.98. And we multiply it by the calculated MR that we got in the previous question. And that's it. That's our minimum value for the relative formula mass. That's the smallest value that our relative formula mass of Fa1 could be. If we wanted the max value, then it's going to be 100 plus the DI and divide by 100, and that's our value. All right, so a student prepares Fa2 using anhydrous sodium thiosulfate salt and the same mass of salt that you used in A. State how the student's titer would compare with the average titer value obtained in B. So they're going to have a smaller value for the titer just because we have a greater concentration of thiosulfate now, right? So 100 grams of sodium thiosulfate is not the same as 100 grams of hydrated sodium thiosulfate, right? Because you have to take into account that mass of the water. Now, the final question. In many titrations, it is usual to fill the burette with a solution of known concentration, but this time we didn't. You saw at the start where we had to add water. So what's the reason for that? That's because iodine is a very dark color and we won't be able to read the burette. And that's the only explanation you need to give, and you'll end up getting that 1 mark. So yeah, that is it for the first question. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. This is a requested video, so I am open to requests, and I'm happy to help you guys when you need to, or when you need the help. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Bye bye now.